The job of the Kabbalist has always been said to be to help God behold God. So therefore, to be reflections of the Holy One on earth and do our very best to bring good and sense and kindness and discernment and understanding and wisdom to earth. So no pressure there then. And we've been talking about Tiferet quite a while back. Sorry about that. But we talked about getting to Tiferet and then going on up so we can drink the divine, because the divine will come down from Keter through Da'at down to Tiferet here, and we receive it in the soul. This is where it says, my cup runneth over in the 23rd Psalm. This is the cup that receives spirit. So why don't we receive spirit? Because an awful lot of the time we don't. And we get pulled down into Yesod. We get pulled down into the everyday resistances that are so justifiable and logical and sensible and good and kind. And I was going to do my meditation this morning, and I had to do a podcast with somebody, and instead of doing the meditation, I looked out of the window and saw that the bird feeders were nearly empty. So I went and filled up the bird feeders, and then I got distracted and picked up some apples, and by the time I came back in, I hadn't done my meditation and I had to go to the podcast. And that's pure Yesod. Yesod will do its best to draw you back from spiritual growth, from drinking the divine. That's its job. It's meant to keep you safe, and it's part of the amygdala at the back of the head. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. And it's the primitive part which says, if you're safe right now, we don't need to develop anymore. You need to stay in the tribe. You don't want to be an odd color. You need to be where it's safe with the others. It's doing its best to keep you alive. But of course, if you're on a spiritual journey, you have to lift yourself up out of that through the awakening triad into Tiferet so you can receive from above. But that's not the end of the story, because these side triads here are really interesting. I don't think a lot of people talk about them. If you look at the ladder here, you'll see that these side triads are not connected to Berea above, so they're not bringing spirit directly, and they're not connected to Asiya below, so they're not part of the physical world. They are utterly unique to each and every one of us. But having said they're unique means that they are also very programmed by the life that we're living right now. They will have been programmed by parents, peers, school, all kinds of things. This one here, between Gevurah, Tiferet, and Hod, is the pain triad. This is where we store sorrow. And you have to have a pain triad because there is enough in this world to upset us, and there is a need for weeping. There is a need for contemplating the difficult times so that we can transform them. The difficulty with that one is when it becomes deep suffering, long-term emotional pain. And we will tend to hide that when we're very young. We don't even know necessarily we've got it. On the other side here, between Hesed, Netzach, and Tiferet, is the triad of pleasure. Everybody likes that one. And that's the one where we store our joy, our creativity, our getting out there and doing stuff. But if we have pain that's too big, this one will bend over into addiction. Jupiter rules Hesed here, and Jupiter is part of Sagittarius and Pisces, and these are all about no boundaries, expansion. So our addictions get lodged in here, and they cover up our pain. And some of our addictions nowadays are actually not our responsibility, really, because they come from the food we eat. We're eating so much ultra-processed food that our bodies get addicted to it, and they call for more and more and more because they're not getting the correct messages that we've had enough. So these triads here are emotional triads. This one on the left is Scorpio, and this one is ruled by Pisces. So you can see they are very, very deeply emotional aspects of us, but they may not be conscious. In fact, a lot of the time they are unconscious. So we don't know what's driving us. Above here, we've got the intellectual side triads. This one is basically the should-nots, and this one is basically the shoulds. It's more complicated than that, but if we start off with the should-nots and the shoulds, we're doing pretty well, because these are the training about how you behave. what you shouldn't do, what's wrong. And this is the training about what's right. And these can be our religions, our philosophies, our tribal views. But the thing about them is when they get overly full or unhealthily bogged down, they end up a bit like this. Can you see on this diagram? They block Tiferet, and they block Yesod getting up to Tiferet, and they block Tiferet receiving from above. So any work we can do to clear these emotional and intellectual aspects of us are really going to help us to lift ourselves up to the divine, to be able to receive the grace that is always there. It's important to remember too that grace cannot be deserved. Everybody is offered grace. But if you've blocked off your soul triad by beliefs and emotions, then you simply won't experience it like somebody who is clear. So it is our job always to do everything we can to clear the emotions and pains within us. And God can help us do that. Even if we have got those overdeveloped side triads, if we will sit in contemplation every day, it will take a few days for the ego to let us to do that. It will resist. If we can sit in contemplation and just get to the Tiferet point of being the watcher and observe our thoughts and ask for help from above, that will carve a small pathway through so grace can be received. It's simple, but nobody ever said it was easy.